Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite. Cincinnati, we gon' rise. In the jungle, we unite. Drippin' orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, everything day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle, drippin' heat. Tigers strike the city streets. East side, stand up. West side, stand up. If you reppin', who that? Time to put your hands up. Bengals stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati, jungle fitted. Who they in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle drippin'. Nasty, natty, yeah, we lit it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feastin' now. Fit the bounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes, Cincinnati, we gon' rise in the jungle, we unite drippin' orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move crossing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em, yeah we fought 'em. Like that black and orange on bottle, bingo bottle, never stop it till the beast.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trunapole. And as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the back-to-back AFC North champions, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, do me a favor, if you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. You guys are awesome. I'm up to 2,119 subscribers. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. So if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I always ask the same question, why not? Please do so. Help me out. Go to the YouTube channel, Bengals Talk with Strawberry Ice. I know I said Sports Strawberry Ice, but change it to Bengals Talk with Strawberry Ice. Hit the subscription button, hit the bell for notification, and every time I go live, you'll be notified. Also, exclusively in the YouTube chat crew, we're doing super chats. So if you got something you want to ask John the Brain Sheeran or me, or you just want to support the show, give me a super chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'm coming to you live from the Ice Cave. And the Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. So if you got looking for a house, looking for a condo, apartment, if you got a rental property that you just don't want to manage anymore, give T Properties a shot and they will take care of the rest for you. Also, you know it. I'm wearing the stuff every day, even though I got a good bear hat on today, but I got the Jackpot Joey hoodie going, flags. We got the beer. You can get the merchandise, not the beer, but you can get the merchandise, all that stuff at jackpotjoey9.com right down there. Remember, portions of the proceeds go to the Joe Burrow Foundation and the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund. So you're not only getting cool gear, but you're helping some people out. Also, the beer back here is by Brink Brewery. Get it at Brink Brewery. It's on Hamilton Avenue. Like I said, the supplies are very limited right now because they're slowing down production. Hopefully, it'll kick back up here probably about April, May, somewhere in there. We're hoping to get it back going there. Anyway, we got Betfred Sports. If you guys have not signed up for Betfred Sports, why not? They're just giving money away, giving you free bets, giving you all kinds of cool stuff on there. Make sure you go check out Betfred Sports. Put a bet on an NBA game this weekend. Hell, put a bet on the XFL. Hey, AJ McCarron. Hey, back-to-back comebacks for the XFL. Hey, yeah, I'm a football junkie. I watch all kinds of football. Anyway, what's up to everybody in the chat? Stranger, you're first. What's going on? Darth Bengal, Greg Graves, Pork Chops in there, Crips in there. Like I said, Molly's in there. Give me a shout out for T Properties. Appreciate it. Player M, what's up? Hey there, you're new. What's going on? Ken's in there. Crip, like I said. Yep, see, John DeBrain. You're the one that named him John DeBrain, so I got to throw that up there. Let's see. Am I done with Reds? No, I'm not done with the Reds. I changed the name to Bengals Talk because 99.9% of the time I'm talking Bengals. So I just figured I just changed it to Bengals Talk, make it easier for people to find. I'll still talk Reds. I can talk whatever I want. We got Natty's in there and Tom is in there. What's up to everybody there? All right, let's get to the reason everybody's here. And the reason everybody's here is John the Brain Sheeran. going on, John?
Look, I definitely support the rebrand, man. Like, the Reds haven't won a playoff series in my lifetime, so I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
I haven't changed the graphic up here yet on the top of the screen. I got to change that. Still sports with strawberry ice. It's just dude, I try to talk Reds. Sometimes some people get
No one wants to hear
talk
that.
Reds. Well, nobody listens or nobody watches. And I enjoy talking Bengals, so I can always change it back. But right now it's Bengals talk with strawberry because the original name was Sports Strawberry Ice, and then people started calling me Iceman. So then my wife goes Sports with Strawberry Ice with the Iceman. I'm like, that's a long freaking title to a channel, so I just shortened it. Bengals talk with Strawberry Ice. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway. So I mean, it's not as cool as Orange and Black Insider Podcast. I mean, let's be real.
Well, if you want to talk about the puppets, like that was originally D&H Sports. It was a very general name. What is it now? Number one Bengals podcast. Is it true? It's up to your interpretation, but that's the name.
So how are the puppets doing? I mean, are they okay? I know they're a little distraught after the AFC Championship game.
Very distraught. They're back home on Village Island right now. They're taking a little hiatus from the show and everything. We might go into maybe a different direction for the off season, but it'll be back before you guys know it. Sounds
good. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed or not, but Bridget actually rode with me in Son of Ice to KC. That was a good trip. The funny thing is, so my son has this brand new car that he got, and you can't. Only thing I could drink, we're allowed to drink in it was water. So every time we had to stop and get something to eat, we had to stop, get out, and eat. We couldn't just go through a drive-through or pick anything up. So it took even longer. He was like, I don't want to pop in here. I don't want anything else. We're not ruining the nice new car. I'm like, oh, my God.
Priorities,
so Bridget,
respect.
Yeah. So me and Bridget we're stuck drinking water. And, it's a 10-hour drive, and you drink enough water, you got to make other stops other than food. Right? So we were making this one. I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I was like, dude, we got to find somebody. So we pulled into I guess they sold RVs there or whatever. So I go up to the door, and it's supposed to be an automatic door, and it's got the mirrored glass. Like all I saw was myself. So I walk up there, and the door doesn't open. I'm like, are they not open? Oh, crap. Well, screw it. I'm going to run around the side of the building or something. I'm like, looking around. There's cameras there. There's guys working. I'm like, oh, man, I can't do that. So I finally saw some guy over there working. I said, hey, are you guys open? I have to use the restroom. He goes, yeah, just go to sliding glass door. I'm like, I did. It didn't open. He goes, pull it open. I'm like, oh, okay. So I pulled the door open, ran in. I'm like, hi, I don't buy anything. Can I go use your bathroom? They're like, yeah, it's right over there. I'm like, all right, thanks. So that was an interesting trip. We just stopped at some random RV place and didn't want to buy an RV. But I mean, we're in the middle of Missouri, so I guess they're big campers out there. I don't know. You ever been RVing?
I have not, but that'd be a great business model. If you have to use the restroom, you have to buy an RV first. I feel like that would increase sales by a lot.
Like, nope, you can't go unless you buy this $100,000 RV. I'm like, I'll just go pee in the parking lot then. Anyway, we're not here to talk about RVs. We're here to talk about Bengals off-season moves, and I think this is one of the most crucial and interesting off-seasons that the Bengals have had. We could have said that last year, but I mean, until I think the Bengals win a Lombardi every year, so we're like, all right, this is a crucial year, I mean, but it's even bigger this year because you got Joe's contract extension, T's contract extension, the free agents that are gone or not gone, but the free agents that possibly could be gone, the ones they might bring in, what are we going to do at right tackle? So basically, in general, what is your thoughts on the Bengals offseason moves in general right now?
It's going to look a lot like off seasons of the past, but obviously, I mean, the difference is Burrow, and what comes with that is a different looking contract than any Bengals fan has ever seen with this team. Now, if they were to get a deal done with T. Higgins as well, that contract will also probably look different. Like they try to stick in their own lane when it comes to how they deal with finances and just general philosophies and everything. But their hand has basically been forced both with the quarterback and receiver market. Like they can't expect to give T. Higgins a deal that's structured in ways that they've done in the past just because T. Higgins knows his worth. He's got an agent who will constantly remind him of what his worth is.
That's the one I'm worried about is his agent.
And like the market is just at a point now where T. Higgins, if the Bengals were to keep him, they can structure in different ways to make sure that the cap is not too strenuous on them. But if they were to even do that, they would structure it in ways where they haven't done it in the past, where you have a lower cap hit in year one, but that requires a larger signing bonus, that requires potential guarantees down the road. it's going to require them with these two contracts to do business in different ways, but we can assume that they're prepared to do that based off of, the business decisions that they've made in the past year or so. So it just comes down to not a matter of if, but just of when at this point. And those two deals will shape how this offseason plays out. Like, I don't expect Higgins to be done. If it does get done this offseason, it probably won't get done until like August, maybe right after the season, like AJ Green was in 2015. Right. I'm sure they want to get Burrow done as soon as possible just so they can go forth with whatever plan that they want in free agency. But if not, that's going to impact how things are done as well. But aside from those two, I feel like it's going to be a very similar offseason before the 2020s. Not to the extent of signing bad players in free agency, but not going out and getting your Trey Hendricksons and your DJ Readers on day one.
But to your point, or how they're going to have to probably structure these things different and bigger signing bonuses, to me, I think they've made the right moves to prepare themselves for this. Hence the names Paycor. Hence we got different names to the different gates around the stadium and stuff. I think that's all to get cash flow. Look at cash to for these signing bonuses. My question is, do you think because the restructuring and because we talk about or not restructuring, but the structure of the new contracts is something that I think they're going to have to do. I think they're prepared to do. Restructuring contracts, is that something that the Bengals have never done that I know of, like Joe Mixon, Lyle Collins, just to throw out some names here. Maybe Tyler Boyd. Is this something that the Bengals, or do you think the Bengals can possibly do is restructure some existing contracts?
I'm leaning towards no. I feel like that's more something like I need to see to believe. I think it's interesting with Mixon and Lell, because we talk about David Mulugeta, who's the agent of Jesse Bates and T. Higgins. Peter Schaefer, I believe that's his name, is the agent for both Lell Collins and Joe Mixon, and both of them are being talked as guys that could be on the cutting room floor. I don't think both will get cut. Maybe one will get cut at this point, but it would just be interesting how the Bengals have such a great relationship with Schaefer, and that's how they were able to get a deal done with both players, specifically with Collins, because that whole negotiation process was definitely interesting. It would be
fast.
Interesting.
It was real quick. Right?
Yeah. It would be interesting if both those guys were let go after they signed, relatively team-friendly deals. Like, they have an established relationship with that agent, and they are, at least in the past, they were able to get agreements to those deals because they have this reputation of remaining true to the contract and not altering it during the life of the deal, not releasing unless it's like clear and obvious or anything like. But basically, you're able to get the majority, if not all, the money out of the deal. If they were to change some of those deals or cut ties with those deals, I feel like that would be a big step, especially with an agent that they have a great relationship with. As far as other restructures, it would make sense, but again, I feel like they're, despite paying Burrow and Higgins and Chase down the line, they're never going to be in a position. I feel like they're never going to put themselves in a position where they feel like they need to restructure. They'll always give themselves an X amount of cap space.
They structured them right in the first place, in their opinion, I guess. Is
exactly.
The best way to put it. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe you might see one if they're really tied up against the cap, but they'll never be like the Saints where they're just making 30 moves before the new year starts, and then they're negative cap space and they're trying to jump through a bunch of hoops to get into the green. I don't think they'll ever put themselves in a position for that, and because of that, I don't think you'll ever really see them take that jump.
Now, I don't think they're going to tag anyway, but Chris here has a question. Sorry, we're just tuning in. Who gets franchise tagged? Me personally, I don't think they're tagging anybody, to be honest.
No, I think Bates in theory would make sense if it wasn't already a high enough price. Double tagging anyone is typically not great business, especially because you paid him $13 million last year. You would have to pay him about 16, maybe 17 million this year. That's $30 million in cash that you're owing this player. You were only guaranteeing 17, 18 million in the proposed contract that you offered him over these past 2 years. At that point, it's just too much, and I can't really speak on what the relationship is between Bates and the team at this point with how the contract talk and negotiations have gone, but I just don't think that's right. Hayden Hurst is another guy where hey, you want to see him do it for another year, but I mean, you're really going to spend that much money for a single year on a tight end? I don't think so. The guy who makes the most sense, regardless of financials or putting financials to the side, is Jermaine Pratt, just because of how well he played in the contract year, but that's $19-20 million.
And that's the one they actually have somebody behind, just like Jesse Bates, that they could replace. I mean, now he's not going to be. I mean, Akeem Davis Gaither is not going to be as good. Well, maybe he will be, but I don't see it right now being as good as Jermaine Pratt. But that is something that they have already in place, just like Dax Hill with Jesse Bates. That's why I personally think both of them are gone because of who they have behind them.
Pretty much. Like, and again, like the definition of the franchise tag is it's the average of the top 5 salaries at that position. So you would only place the tag on someone that you would view in that upper echelon of positions. I don't think you quite view Jermaine Pratt at that point yet. You probably view T. Higgins at that point if this was the last year of his deal, and that's why we might have a conversation about this time next year if they don't get a deal done. Like that, right. T. Higgins is the exact player that they would tag, and that's, I feel like, being missed right now with a lot of discussions around the league.
No. Yeah, that's why everybody keeps saying that. Like, everybody's like, oh, they got traded. I'm like, dude, one, I think they're going to sign him. 2, if they don't, they will definitely tag him. I guarantee you they'll tag him. I mean, they're not going to just let him walk, because one thing the Bengals love is they love quarterbacks and they love wide receivers. I mean, look at the franchise history of our quarterbacks and wide receivers. So, I mean, they will. T's not going anywhere for at least the next 3 years. He's a Bengal, in my opinion, if they sign him or not, which I think they will. But okay, so what's your thoughts on that? Do you think they can fit Burrow, T, and Chase under the salary cap? And do you think I think that's their plan, but do you think they'll actually do that?
They can fit them all under the cap, just because if they were to structure it in the way of the 21st century, like your first 2 years, like your cap hits aren't going to be that high, but that of course requires a ton of cash up front. The Bengals typically like to have this cash to cap ratio of about 1-to-1, and that ratio would be kind of off kilter in these next couple of years if they were to put, let's just throw out some random numbers, like 150 million in cash to Burrow, right? And then, I don't know, like 60, 70 to Higgins, and then like 100 to Chase. Like that's a ton of cash on hand that they need to have. Yeah, right? So again, like that's the huge hurdle with how to structure these with low cap hits up front, which is why, like, Alex Capo is a great example. He signed like a 4-year, $40 million, but his cap hit immediately was pretty close to the average annual value of 10. Like, okay, you see other deals in that range, like, you know, the first year cap hit is like 6 to 7 because he gets a lot of cash up front. That's just not how the Bengals have traditionally done business. If that's the direction that they want to go, then they're just going to have to greatly adjust whatever ratio of cash to cap that they're going to have.
All right, let's talk a little. We have player M here. We'll get him because he's first time him or her commenting here that I can remember. But it said, to me, it's time to get a 20 sack D lineman. My question would be where and who, I guess. I mean,
he's talking about one player?
I think so.
Yeah. Is there a TJ Watt or Myles Garrett available? That'd be nice.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, he goes, indeed. I want the quarterback to be sacked. Yeah, I agree with you. But I mean, I don't know. That's like when we had Andy Dalton and everybody's like, well, we need to get a better quarterback. All right. Who? Like, I'd love to get a 20 sack guy, but I don't think he's out there. It's just like the whole conversation I've had a lot here this week about the right tackle position. Like, there's no franchise right tackle out there. I mean, there's not. I mean, I really do. Now, Dale from Bengals and Brewers was on here yesterday talking up I'm going to say his name wrong. The tackle from the Raiders, who's the free agent, Jared I kept saying Illuminati, whatever. I can't say his name. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. And he said PFF has ranked in the top 10, like he's 7th among tackles, and he always projected to make $4 million. Now it might be like 6-7 million. To me, that's a guy that definitely the Bengals should try to go out and sign, and then possibly. Maybe one of these right tackles would be there in the draft, and you could possibly draft them because if you draft an offensive lineman, I don't care if you draft one in the first round, offensive linemen still take at least a year or two to actually really develop to where you can really rely on them. So my whole thing is, what's your thoughts on the right tackle position? That's one that for me is a big spot that we got to figure out.
There's 2 angles with this. I think for starters, like, they need someone that they can rely on for week 1, and I don't think that's La'el Collins at this point. Like, you just can't project if he's like, even if he is healthy, is he healthy enough to play at a high level? Yeah, mm-hmm. like he suffered a torn ACL in December. He's 300 something pounds at 30 years old. Like, typically you don't expect that to recover in just 9 months. So they need like a quick fix. So I'm not looking at the Mike McGlincheys, the Jawan Taylors of the world, because they already have a decent amount of change invested in the offensive line. They did that last year. I think they still would like to have La'el Collins for this year, but they just obviously they can't rely on him. So I would look at it like a stopgap. I would look at someone that you sign for 1, maybe 2 years with some incentives, because he's probably going to be relied on to play at least for the beginning part of the year, and you put some incentives in the contract to say, hey, if you play X amount of games in case La'el's not ready, you get an increase in salary. I feel like Jermaine Illuminati, let's call him that, is a good fit for that. Just because he had 1 year of starting experience and he played really well with the Raiders, but he was also with the Patriots when Ted Karras was there, so there's a connection there. The other connection that makes sense to me is Cameron Fleming, who's a little bit on the older side. He's like 30, 31, but he was with the Cowboys when Frank Pollock was there in like 2018, 2019. So that those two make sense to me as like, okay, we don't believe our right tackle is going to be available to start with us. We don't want to rely on a rookie, especially because I think there are a lot of good right tackles in this class, but they're drafting so late in the first round. I don't think you can trust that one is going to be there, even though the other angle with this, they need long-term security at both spots, right? And I think this year makes perfect sense to address that either tackle spot in the first 2 rounds. But again, I don't want to go into the draft not having already signed one and just relying on, hey, we hope that one's there, and then you're in a position where you're either taking, Jackson Carman or Billy Price again.
Yeah, that's exactly my whole thing. I don't want to go and pick it at 28 first round, 60 in the second round. You can't sit there and go in there and say, all right, we gotta get a right tackle, we gotta get a tackle. I want somebody in there like, all right, if there's a tackle there, we can draft. If he's not there in the first round, we can possibly get one in the second round we can develop. That's where the Bengals need to be, because, and it's nothing against La'el, you just can't count on him, like you said, with his torn ACL. It's ACL and MCL, right? Did he tear both of them, or is it just the ACL? Yeah, it's both of them. So, I mean, that's 2 ligaments. He's 300-some pounds, so it's going to take a while. If you remember Trey Hopkins, Joe's second year, he was coming back from, I think, a torn ACL, and he really never was that great at center. So it takes a long time to come back from that. So that's something where, me personally, that's one thing I want them to address. They got to get somebody who they can rely on at right tackle. And I still rely on right tackle. And God, if they could just freaking stay healthy at right tackle, John, that would be that would be huge. I'm tired of going into the playoff. Right tackle's out for the season. But if you sign somebody and you keep La'el, there is your scenario that if one of them gets hurt, then the other one is right there. So that's where I'm starting to lean more toward keeping La'el, because he doesn't cost a ton, and it would not rush him back to having to hurry up and start. Where are you at on keeping La'el or cutting him?
So we had this conversation on Twitter a couple of days ago. Like, I'm not of the opinion that La'el should be kept just as like your swing tackle. Like, I feel like if you're keeping him on the roster, you're expecting him to return as a starter at some point, whether that's late this year or, I mean, it would have to be late this year. I don't feel like you can keep him here and just redshirt him for
at the earliest. For my opinion, he's not coming back to October at the earliest. I think just my opinion. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm no doctor.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Trey Hopkins. That's the perfect example. He was hurt like the last week of 2020, I want to say, and it was to me, it was miraculous that he was even healthy for week 1. Yeah, right. But you clearly saw he wasn't the same player until like late October that year, and then he finished the year strong. But they made the decision to move on from him. But he was 30 years old. He's about the same. But he didn't have as extensive of an injury history as La'el, and that's the other thing here, man. Like, if you're paying a guy $7 million to sit on the bench, but he's already at the point in his career where he's not practicing for a day of the week just because you're performing maintenance essentially, or load management on his back, because that's just who he is at this point. And that's why his contract is set up in the way where $2.4 million of his salary this year is based off per game roster bonuses. And he doesn't get that money if he doesn't play. The Bengals knew this going into this agreement and this partnership with him. And it's the biggest variable to me, because obviously there's implications if they cut him before he can pass a physical, and then would take on like a bigger amount of dead cap with that. So I just don't foresee it happening because of that. But again, like it's a very weird and unpredictable situation.
It's a very unique situation. I mean, honestly, John, if he didn't get hurt, if La'el didn't get hurt, we would just be talking about trying to get depth pieces. And I think that's even because people give Jonah all kinds of crap. And to me, I say this all the time, Jonah Williams is going to be our left tackle next year. Like it or not, he's going to be our left tackle. Do we need to find some more depth? Yes. Is he going to be here after that? I have no idea. Now, Jonah Williams, he has never lived up to the number 11 overall pick. but he's not, in my opinion, he's not god awful. I mean, yes, he's given up, I think, the most sacks, I think, for left tackle. But I always look at it this way. He has to go against Myles Garrett twice a year. He has to go against J.J. Watt. I mean, he has to go against some of the best defenses in the freaking league. So you have to kind of hold back criticism a little bit. Yes, he's not as good as we want him to be, but he's not awful. What's your thoughts on Jonah? Mine is.
I kind of went off on this on Wednesday on the Orange or Black Insider. I don't like that people have access to sack numbers for offensive linemen now because it completely creates this skewed argument against them. And people love to look at Jonah's sack numbers. They don't like to look at it.
You tweeted something out about this, didn't you?
In context, yeah. So in context to his snap per snap production compared to other tackles in his realm, most tackles don't give up that many sacks. And when I say give up, I mean sacks don't normally happen as much for those tackles who play at the level that Jonah Williams played, which I would say is adequate for a starting left tackle. If he were released, he would get picked up immediately by any team that needs a competent left tackle. That's just we can talk about living up to draft status. I don't know what if you were to pull 100 Bengals
Anthony
fans.
Munoz. I mean, I get that's what it sounds like to me when they say it, which is a Hall of Fame, the best offensive left tackle ever in NFL. That's what it sounds like to me when people say this stuff, which I think is
when
ridiculous.
he came out of Alabama, he was a very good technician. He knew what he was doing at such a young age. He had so much starting experience out of Alabama. He always had these physical limitations. He was never the quickest out of his stance. Yeah, he's obviously not the biggest. He doesn't have the longest arms. Doesn't have the strongest hands and everything. But he's managed to be a quality left tackle regardless. If you don't look at the sack number, you see a quality left tackle because sacks are not on individual offensive linemen. Like PFF, in the way that they chart, someone has to be quote unquote responsible. But I don't look at Jonah Williams saying, oh, he's guaranteed to give up a sack a game. And if you take away the Browns games, he doesn't give up that many sacks. It's weird. I don't want to look at it and view it from that perspective. But Myles Garrett is freaking good, man, and he beats most left tackles that he goes up against.
Exactly. I say that all the time. It's Myles freaking Garrett. I mean, yes. Well, he beats everybody. There's a reason he's one of the best defensive players in football.
If you were to look at both Jonah and Lel and watch all their snaps, and you didn't know which one was which, right? You didn't know, you're not a Bengals fan, you don't know these guys' names, but if you're just gonna watch both those guys every single snap, you would come away saying, man, number 71 for Bengals is a lot worse than number 73. That's just what it was last year. I'm sorry but that's just what it was.
Right. And the thing is, the one thing I keep trying to remind Bengals fans too is when the offensive line was healthy and we had all five guys playing together, Joe Burrow was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in football during that stretch. I mean, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that. And think, if you remember, we won freaking 10 games in a row. That's where I'm like, everyone wants to get rid of everybody on the offensive line, or not everybody, mostly Jonah. I'm like, all we really got to do is worry about the right tackle. And the only reason that is because L is injured. We need depth. Obviously, we need that too. But that's the starting position you need to worry about because of the injury of La'el Collins. Other than that, I'm okay with the offensive line. Now, do they keep Jonah after this next year? I have no idea. That's up to them. But Jonah Williams is going to be our left tackle, and he's not that bad. I mean, he's not all pro, but he's pretty damn good. And like you said, if he is a free agent, he's probably right underneath Orlando Brown as the top free agents at left tackle, I think.
So there's another angle with this too, because there's an obvious distrust when it comes to the franchise and drafting offensive linemen, and I understand that, right? You want the team to be attacking positions that they're good at developing, right? And theoretically, if you are bad at drafting X position, then you should just sign these guys. It's tough to consistently, year after year, if you have an offensive line weakness, just go out and get the best guy on the market, right? The money is not unlimited in that regard, right? If the Bengals are to sustain this level of success, they need to be good at drafting at all positions. They can't stop investing in young talent, specifically the offensive line, just because of how valued it is on the open market. The price is only going up, especially for the tackles positions. The Bengals can't give up in that regard. They need to evolve their scouting process. They need to just work through it. They can't just continue to rely on just going after veterans for this, because eventually the money's going to run up dry.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, they actually drafted an offensive lineman last year, Cordell Volson. He played all 17 games. So, I mean, that to me, that's a good sign. And say what about Jackson Carman. When they needed Jackson Carman this year, he didn't do bad. You know, I mean, I don't know where you're at on Jackson Carman. I know he played better in the Buffalo game than he did the Kansas City game, but all of the offensive line played better in the Buffalo game than they did the Kansas City game. But I think Jackson Carman has at least earned his spot on the team next year as the backup left tackle, maybe possibly swing tackle. Where are you at on Jackson Carman and the Bengals right now?
I don't have an issue with him being the swing tackle. I feel like I think it's fair to say at this point that he's the most comfortable on the outside. I think I didn't personally see that great of an athlete in Clemson, but that was something that some other people saw, and that's why at the end of the day, scouting is ultimately subjective when it comes to the eye test, right? So it looks like after 2 years of technique training and just being in the NFL team and in the locker room and conditioning and everything, it seems like his footwork is good enough to survive on the edge. It seems like his hand usage has always been interesting to me. Like it's more nuanced than people give him credit for, and I feel like when he was inside, he was mainly relying on these jump sets and just getting up into the defensive tackle's face, and that led to very over-aggressive reps, and defensive tackles kind of took advantage of that. But when he's on the outside, I think he's more patient. I think he strikes his landmarks a little bit better and more consistently, and
right.
that's a decent tackle. Now, the sample size is extremely small.
Yeah.
And you can look at what the benefits of playing in a blizzard against a non-elite edge rusher against the Buffalo Bills, and you can go into all that, and then you can weigh it against what he did against the Chiefs, which wasn't very good. And I would confidently say that Jonah Williams would have played better in that game compared to Jackson Carman, because Jonah Williams is a better left tackle than Jackson Carman right now, and that's just what it is. So until Jackson Carman proves it over a 16-17 game schedule, I'm not confident relying on him as a starter.
Right. No. Yeah. I'm not saying have him as a starter. I mean, John, I've thrown this out there. If our offensive line is healthy, we win the damn Super Bowl. I totally believe that. I think if our offensive line was healthy last year, we win. That means with Riley Reef at your right tackle, I think we win the Super Bowl. I mean, we are. I hate to say we're an offensive line away from winning. We're a healthy offensive line away from winning a Super Bowl. That's where I'm like, the depth has got to improve, I think, because we've needed it the last 2 years. We've been a pretty healthy freaking team except for our offensive line the last 2 years. That's where we got to get that depth somehow. And it's going to be the draft, to be honest. I don't see them signing a lot of veteran guys as backups. I do, like I said, I do want them to address a veteran guy at right tackle just because L's not healthy. And I've said that a couple times on here. Let me get to Pork Chop here, and he's talking about Tampa Bay. So nobody knows. I know nobody thinks this, but what if Tampa Bay has a fire sale because they are way over the cap? Maybe they shop worse. What do you think about that, John and Ice? Good, John. What do you think?
Tristan Wirfs would help a lot. He's only, I don't know, the best young right tackle in the league. That comes with a price, though. I remember someone brought up, like, would you trade T. Higgins for Tristan Wirfs straight up? And I would lean no, just because I think a high-quality receiver is more valuable than an individual high-quality tackle. I don't think Tristan Wirfs will be for sale, though. I don't think Tampa Bay is quite ready for all of that yet, and I think he should be a core piece for them just to build going forward. Right. But yeah, like when you have a situation like that, like I feel like other players who are maybe not foundational building blocks are probably on the table for them, maybe.
Well, the other thing to that is if we were willing to trade T. Higgins for worse, well, then we would have not drafted Jamar Chase and drafted Sewell. So I don't see them doing that. I mean, that's the same. They literally had that scenario 2 years ago. They could have drafted Penei Sewell and they drafted Jamar Chase. And I think we're all happy they did that. Jamar Chase has been a game changer, and T. Higgins dropping to the second round has been unbelievable. So that would be my caveat to that. All right, player M. Defensive ends are more common than O-line players. Lou says defensive wins championships. Other teams in the AFC North won because of their defense. Just saying. Our defense actually, and that's one thing, John, our defense is pretty damn good. You know? I mean, our defense is the reason we've went to two Super Bowl or to two AFC championship games. I mean, our offense played so up and down the last 2 years. Defense has been the one that's most consistent. That's where I think it's funny. People were like, "Oh, we got to get a more." What you were just saying about sacks. Well, we get a lot of pressures on quarterbacks, and to me, pressuring is almost as good as a sack. Yeah, sack's great, but if you get pressure on the guy, you're making him throw the ball faster. That makes it easier for your DBs to cover him too, because he's throwing it before either wide receiver gets to a spot or whatever. What's your thoughts on the defense in general?
In general, like my whole, I'm sure that I can speak for a lot of people. Like my whole perception and thoughts on Lunarumo has evolved so much in his 4 years. Like I used to
Oh,
think
dude,
that okay,
I used to call him Amarita, or what I call Armadillo. That's what I used to call him. Now I'm calling him Lou Dini and the mad scientist. I love Lou now.
yeah, like when they started investing in the defense and investing in a way that was unprecedented for them, like in terms of bringing all these big money names in to just rebuild the whole unit. I thought, okay, yeah, like he's getting results, but it's because like the defense is now talented in every way, shape, or form. Now I'm to the point where like the defense gets pressures, the defense gets stops on third down because there just isn't a weakness. And while there isn't a weakness, there isn't like a dominating strength either. Like unless you just want to look at just isolated at the maybe the best nose tackle in the league in DJ Reader, he's probably the best case for being an elite player on this defense. Trey Hendrickson consistently gets 10 plus sacks, but he's not a take over the game like a Myles Garrett type player, you know. And I'm sure that's what Player M is thinking about with a 20 sack player, you know, that unicorn. He just finds a way to just on a weekly basis just cook up in a perfect game plan against what the offense does best, and he has this unit clicking on all cylinders where the defense gets pressures not just because you're winning in a timely manner, but the secondary is constantly communicating on the same page and with sticky coverage, rarely allowing separation. It's all these things work in unison, and that's what gets results. And that's a testament to the game planning and the real time coaching with Anarumo. So I give him even more credit than I probably gave him last year. Where I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's just a product of a defense that's now talented. No, I think it's because of what he's doing with his talent.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that Lou does, that's why I call him Lou Dini, and I call the defense more of a morphing defense. It's more of like what the Patriots would do to win all the Super Bowls. Whatever you do good, they take that away from you, and it doesn't. Yeah. And they can change from quarter to quarter, half to half, which I think is great by Lou and by the players to be able to do that.
But here's the thing, though. Like I mean, the Super Bowl's the best example of this. The Eagles got to the Super Bowl. You know, obviously their offense is great. They've sacked like the quarterback 80 times, I think, right. on the season, right? They had a really talented defensive line, and we can talk about the conditions of the field, but that defensive line was more or less neutralized in the Super Bowl. Normally, a defensive line that talented that can help you, win a Super Bowl. That's why the Eagles ultimately beat the Patriots like 5 years ago. They had another dominant defensive line in 2017, and I feel like that's probably the missing piece with the Bengals. Like, scheme and coaching, it can take you a lot of places, right? But when you're up against a juggernaut like the Chiefs, and the Bengals will eventually have to run into the Chiefs again, if they can't consistently, garner pressure and generate pressure on Mahomes or any other elite quarterback and elite offense and just an elite scheme that, does just as well scheme and offense as Lunarumo does scheme and defense, like you need that elite talent ultimately to get over the hump. And I feel like there might be just another good pass rusher away from consistently generating pressure throughout the game, because sometimes it does unfortunately disappear a little bit.
Now could that guy be on the roster? And the one I'm leaning toward is Joseph Osai, because in that Kansas City Chiefs games before he hit Patrick Mahomes out of bounds, he was getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And toward the end of the season, he started making that leap, I think, that we all hoped he'd make earlier in the season. And that's where I don't want to squash his progress. It put him up there. Do you think he takes an even bigger jump this year to possibly be that pass rush, that other extra pass rusher that we're talking about?
I think it's dependent on if they can find another pass rushing defensive tackle, because early in the season, Osai played a lot of snaps inside because they just didn't have that nickel pass rusher to put next to like BJ Hill, right? DJ Reader was their best pass rushing defensive tackle. I love DJ Reader. He's a phenomenal player. That cannot repeat again. Like, you know what I mean? No, like, he doesn't have that explosiveness that other teams have at the 3 technique spot, and they need that guy that they can rotate in with BJ Hill. They need essentially a better version, a younger version of Larry Ogunjobi that they had in 2021. Right. And when you have that guy that can play 400, 500 snaps and give you, pushing the pocket production, it allows you to keep Osai on the edge where he can thrive and where he did start to thrive towards the end of the season.
Now, did Zach Carter, did he do enough for you to think he not that he can be that guy, but he can take another step next year? Because I know you said a younger guy. One thing I would love to get Larry O back, but another guy that I have out there that I wanted the Bengals to try to sign last year, that the free agent this year, is Akeem Hicks. I know he's on the older side, but rotationally, put him in there with Zach Carter. Maybe that could be a formula to what we're talking about. What do you think about Akeem Hicks and Zach Carter?
Yeah, Akeem Hicks might be on just the back burner at this point.
Yeah,
like
he might be.
I don't see him being that much of a factor for any defense at this point. Zach Carter showed enough, I think, as a run defender, but I would not be confident if he's your third defensive tackle from a pass rushing standpoint.
Right.
So, like, I question what the plan was with him this season in general, because he was an edge who essentially the Bengals moved him inside. They bulked him up a little bit, and when you gained that extra weight, if typically you lose explosion, you lose speed, athleticism, the whole 9 yards. So he just did next to nothing as a pass rusher this year. But you saw him be more consistent in finding the ball and shedding blocks and run defense, and there's value to that, right? Like, if they keep 5 defensive tackles, I feel like he'll be amongst that 5. But like, he didn't do enough to the point where like I'm ignoring pass rushing defensive tackles in the draft.
So do you think there's a chance they could get Larry O back? Because to me, he would have to check his ego because he wouldn't be the starter. BJ Hill would be the starter. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to get him back. What's your thoughts on it? Because I don't think he's going to get the money he got from Chicago. He had a good year, but not as good as he did with the Bengals, I think. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's certainly what he's looking for at this point, because he's still young enough to theoretically, break the bank. But I don't think he did that much with Pittsburgh this year, and he might be looking at another 1-year deal. And if that's the case, I'm sure Cincinnati will be on the radar. But I mean, I don't think any of us expected him to get as much as Chicago offered and agreed to. Yeah, but I mean, that's just what free agency is, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and like, coincidentally, Chicago is the team that I'm looking at, like, as this year's Jaguars, as a team that's going to probably inflate multiple markets. Like, I don't know if it's going to be Christian Kirk 2.0 again, but like they have all the money in the world right now, and they need to build around their quarterback. So if they target a couple of guys at some positions, they'll probably just offer him like $5-6 million more than what the current market is, and just basically screw up the rest of the league for it, maybe.
So who out there, I guess, in free agency would be somebody that the Bengals could target? Do you have somebody in mind? Have you even done a dive into that at all?
I'm a big fan of Poona Ford, the defensive tackle from Seattle. Like, I feel like he can play both technique spots, but he's more of a productive pass rusher than people give him credit for. He signed like a 2-year deal with Seattle, I think, a couple of years ago, and there might not be interest to bring him back again. So he's still on the younger side. I think he's like 26, 27, which fits in the range of what the Bengals are typically targeting nowadays. They just need that extra boost inside, and I feel like he's not going to command starter money or anything. He might look for a chance to prove himself and get back on the market next year, and I feel like this would be a good spot for that.
Yeah, those are more of the guys, like I said, that I'm thinking that the Bengals are going to side. Like I said, the guy from I can't keep saying Illuminati, the right tackle from the Raiders, and then Poona. Is that what you said? His name was Poona?
Yeah.
Those I think are guys that I think the Bengals would be targeting. Now I always say those guys aren't like first day guys, but I mean, Alex Kappa and Ted Karras weren't necessarily first day free agents either, but they're the first ones that came out the block and the Bengals signed them. So I mean, the Bengals could target that again this offseason, because those are two spots that I don't know if you necessarily can fix or are willing to fix in the draft. Because they tried to replace Larry in the draft and it didn't really work. So that is something that I think if you get somebody to replace what Larry O did the year before, that's going to help the pass rush and like you said, and pressuring on the quarterback. So do you think those might be targets that they possibly do look in free agency?
Yeah, just because you have to look at opportunity too. You're gonna have a starting 22 of, like, I think at this point like 18 are under contract. A handful will leave, like Bates and Pratt will probably be gone, but Eli Apple will be gone too at this point. And
you don't think they're going to resign Eli? You don't think he's coming back again?
It's all dependent on like if another team will take him. Which
I think there's a better shot since Lou came back. Is where I think if Lou was gone, I don't think they signed him. But I think there's a better shot.
Sure, but even still, like I don't think he will come back as a starter. So like,
no.
Yeah, so like of the incumbent 22 right now, I think 17 or 18 are under contract, and for 2 of them who are going to leave, and Bates and in this case Apple would leave as a starter but come back as a reserve. You have 2 guys who replace them in Taylor Britt and Dax Hill. You have Pratt leaving, and then a platoon of Marcus Bailey, Akeem Davis-Gaither will replace him. Hayden Hurst could potentially leave, but you're looking at a tight end class in the draft that's really talented, and they might go to there. So in terms of enticing free agents to come here, and specifically free agents that you sign early, they're looking for starting jobs. Right tackle would be there, and maybe rotational defensive tackle, a position that gets 400, 500 snaps. Like those just would be the most attractive spots and potential openings that I think outside free agents look at. Hey, I have an opportunity to play for a contender and play significant snaps.
Yeah, you read my mind. That's what I was about to say. Is that the Bengals being a legit Super Bowl contender, these guys, it has to be a factor in this as well. I could do a 1-year prove deal, go win a ring, and maybe move on, get my ring, and then get more money next year is a factor. Now, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the show. Joe Burrow's contract, and I want to give a shout out to you because you did a video a couple weeks ago about Joe Burrow, and people think that Burrow is going to take less money. Me personally, I don't think he's going to take less money. I don't necessarily know if he's going to break the bank, but I think the Bengals are going to structure it more along the lines of what Patrick Mahomes did, which when they did this, Patrick Mahomes was the highest paid quarterback. And the Bengals are not afraid to pay their quarterbacks. Boomer used to be the highest paid quarterback. Carson Palmer was. I think Andy Dalton was for a day or two. I mean, they pay quarterbacks, so I'm not worried about that. So maybe, I guess, do you think they're going to sign Joe? I think they got to sign him before free agency is what I think they're trying to do that. Do you think that's a good shot that's going to happen? Just Joe Burrow's contract in general. I know I kind of rambled there, but what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to look like, again, something that we've never seen before. So I don't have a lot to go off of. Like, I can look at what other quarterbacks have signed, but like, there's a possibility that he signs an 8-year, a 9-year, 10-year deal. There's a possibility he signs a 3 or 4-year deal like Dak Prescott did. And whatever happens, like, I'm sure the Bengals will just accept it regardless. But the only thing that I can say is that he'll eclipse $50 million per year, and you can provide the rolling guarantee argument, and you can do all these other things to structure in different ways. But $50 million a year is $50 million a year, and once that money becomes real, it's not team friendly. You can't make it team friendly at that point. Like, like
you just got to spread it out.
Yeah, you're spending a ton of cash on a yearly basis, regardless of what you do, and it's going to require, even if it's a quote unquote low guaranteed upfront amount of like $100 and something million, that's still a ton of money for the Bengals standards, and that's going to impact what they can and can't do going forward. So I don't have like a projection off the top of my head. I feel like that's more of Andre Parada's arena there. But all I can say is like he's yeah, absolutely. All I can say is he'll get north of $50 million per year, and if he doesn't, then he's got the worst agent in the world.
Right, exactly. All right, so to wrap this thing up here, you've been on for almost 47 minutes. I appreciate you, John. We're finally getting our second Hall of Famer in, Ken Riley, the Rattler. I'm so happy this is happening. I got his son, Ken Riley, second. He's going to be joining me on Monday. What does this mean for future Bengals getting in? Like Willie Anderson, Ken Anderson, maybe Corey Dillon, other guys. Like I said, I think Lamar Parrish should be getting in, but I don't think I think that ship's sailed. But what does this mean in general for future Bengals to get into it, and just your thoughts on Ken Riley in general?
I'm very much mind melding with Paul Daniel Jr. here. It's a mixed bag of like relief, but also anger because it took him essentially passing away and not being mentioned in the post memoriam for the Hall of Fame to even take notice of Ken Riley. It's great that they have this temporary, I think, new rule of like increased amount of senior finalists that can get in, and it was good that he was able to do that during this time period. I think obviously the Ring of Honor helps as well. Like it's gotten Willie Anderson on the map. It obviously got Ken and Riley on the map. It should help get Ken Anderson on the map too. Like I feel like one of the Andersons is going to be the next guy in, and I feel like because Willie's been a finalist as a modern finalist for the last 2 years, he's probably getting in maybe as soon as next year, just because there's no Joe Thomas next year's class, right? So that there's a spot for like the committee to say, hey, we need an offensive lineman. Willie Anderson's been a finalist 2 years in a row. Let's get him in. So the more the merrier, obviously, and it's great that the Bengals are more of a prominent brand and a franchise now because of the recent success and because the franchise is taking these extra steps and putting their name out there. But like I would hope that the next Bengal that gets in doesn't have to wait until he's 6 feet under, right, for this to happen. So I hope that that's something that has woken up the elderly who vote for these people. So yeah,
I mean, John, it's ridiculous. The Baltimore Ravens, who started in 1996, have more Hall of Famers than the Cincinnati Bengals do. That's ridiculous right there. And one that I thought Willie was going to get in this year, to be honest. So I was ticked off about that. It ticked me out that Joe Thomas gets in. And to me, the only reason Joe Thomas gets in because he's on TV. You can't tell me Joe Thomas had a more successful career than Willie Anderson. Willie actually went to the playoffs. Joe Thomas never went to the freaking playoffs. Why the hell did he get in? Why was it, Joe Thomas is going to go in? I mean, I've never done a deep dive in Joe Thomas's stats, and I'm not saying Joe Thomas doesn't deserve it. Well, it really needed to be in before Joe Thomas did, in my opinion. What's your thoughts?
I mean, he played the more prominent position at left tackle. Like if Joe Thomas was the right tackle for the Cleveland Browns, would be a first ballot? I don't know, probably not.
Right.
But I'm not going to deny Joe Thomas was the best left tackle of his time. Like he had 10, 11 years of being literally the best, like the standard
best right tackle of his time. I mean, I know it's right and left. I know. But
I understand that, but like there's still the stigma of right versus left tackle, and that's unfortunately what hindered Willie. But also and I think the stigma of the Bengals has definitely hurt Willie and other candidates. But if you want to talk about a worse stigma, definitely the Browns. Like if there's a bigger national laughing stock than the Bengals, it's the Browns, and I feel like it's almost worked in favor of Joe Thomas. Despite being with the Browns for his entire career, he was still a 8 or 9 or however many time All Pro for being on a team that was a consistent loser. To be that individually great for so long on that terrible of a team, it almost I think kind of helped him in that point. Obviously, being in the national media doesn't hurt either, but I mean just following Joe Thomas's career, I never had a doubt that he was going to be Hall of Famer soon after he retired.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying he shouldn't be in at all. It just irritates me that the reason Bengals don't get in that we heard because we didn't win. We weren't a quote unquote winning franchise. Yeah, and then Joe Thomas goes in who they didn't win crap. They were worse than us. Which I mean, we during Joe Thomas' his career, we went to the playoffs multiple times, and he never went. So that's supposed to be a factor in all this stuff. And and I understand Joe Thomas is a great left tackle. I don't think I'm not saying he shouldn't be in. It just irritated me that he got in before Willie, because Willie, in my opinion, should have already been in. It's just like I'm tired of this narrative and where we had these Bengals players that Kenny should have already been in. Like I said, I think Lamar Parrish should have already been in, because if you look at the DBs in the 70s, Ken Ryan and Lamar Parrish are two of the best. So anyway, it's just. I'll go down a whole rabbit hole. We keep going. It just gets really irritating. Anyway, John, you've been on for 52 minutes. I appreciate you. Tell everybody about any articles you got out on Cincy Jungle, Orange Black Insider Podcast, or whatever, or the Puppets, number one podcast, whatever you want to plug.
Yeah, we got some content coming out here within the next week. Going to try to put some of this T. Higgins stuff to bed with an article. But we posted a video on that whole subject on the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast YouTube channel, so check that out. And obviously all the content with the Cincy Jungle Podcast Network, not just our channel, but Coach Speak with Matt Minnick and then Bengal Jim's show as well. So check us all out at cincyjungle.com.
Awesome. John, I appreciate you, man. I will see you hopefully sometime in the jungle. You're going to go to any games this year?
Yeah.
You got any plans? Yep.
Oh, I mean, I was at the playoff game against the Ravens, and as long as I keep getting invited back to the playoffs, I might as well go.
Well, yeah, I would too. I have to see you sometime. We'll have to hang out. You gotta get AC. Gotta get the Godfather back in town sometime soon.
Yeah, he was trying his best to come out here, but unfortunately the cards just weren't in his favor. But I'm thinking that's going to change this year.
Yeah, I was giving him crap like, dude, come on, you gotta come. I'm trying. So anyway, John, appreciate you, brother. You have a great weekend. Who day?
Thank you.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Go follow John, the Brain Sheeran, and the Godfather, Anthony Cosenza. They're on the Orange and Black Insider Podcast. The guys are always awesome. They always come on my show whenever I ask. So I always appreciate them. Like I said, John is full of all kinds of cool information. So hopefully the Bengals, like I said, I really do think the Bengals are going to sign a right tackle. That's my feeling. If they cut Lel, they keep him. I don't know. I've kind of gone back and forth of keeping him, cutting him. If you keep him, then you got a backup, or if the guy you sign, Illuminati, which it's Jerome, I can't say his name, whatever. If they sign him and he doesn't play that great, Lel pushes him, competition isn't bad. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But to my opinion, they have got to do something in free agency with that right tackle, just because Lel is not going to be ready by the beginning of the season. Just my thoughts. And I would love to sign Larry Ogunjobi again or somebody like that to free up BJ Hill, in the pass rush. To me, that's more of where we need to address the defense of pass rush is still got to replace Larry O from last year or the year before that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's get to the Facebook groups that let me live stream. And as always, I appreciate every single one of them. They're Houday Nation, Houday Legion, Bearcat Ruckus, Radical Reds, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar, and then you can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter handle is at Chef A Trunable. TikTok is at Iceman90. Like I said, I did change the name of the show. I changed the name of my Twitter. I haven't changed the name of Facebook yet or any other things. I'm going with Bengals Talk with Strawberry Ice. Because like I said, 99.9% of the time I'm talking Bengals on here. We can talk Bearcats, Reds still. But it's just, I think it's more of what the show is mostly about is Bengals. So that's the reason I changed the name of the show if you guys like it. Anyway, I'll be pulling a sound off later on tonight, putting on the podcast. It's on BeanPod, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a quote and a comment and leave me a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. Try to listen to it as much as you can. Tell people about it because I'm getting a ton of views on my YouTube channel, which I love. I'm just trying to get some more listens on the podcast. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. YouTubers, like I said, you guys are awesome. We're 2,119 subscribers, which is unbelievable. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors about sports. Bengals Talk with Strawberry Ice. Try to get that up to 3,000 as fast as we can. Like I said, Monday is going to be a great show. I got Ken Riley II on. I will be coming at you tomorrow. We got Mark Walters, Mr. Third Down. If you guys don't know who he is, where you been at, he is the crazy man that sits there and does this like the whole game. And the Bengals we'll zoom in on him and third down and everything. And he's a great guy, great Bengals fan. So we will be coming at you tomorrow night at 6. We got Billy Up to the Bar at 7. At 8:30. At 7 o'clock, Bengals and Brews. They've got a guy from PFF. I can't remember his name right now. Go check that out. So if you're watching right now, it is almost 6:30. If you haven't got anything to eat, go get something to eat, get some beer, come back home, sit down, watch Bengals and Brews, then watch Billy Up to the Bar. We got you covered for the rest of the evening. Other than that, got to get the clip here. There it is. Other than that, you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday. That's your sports, baby. See ya!